Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the Community Services Recovery Fund. It's wonderful to see folks piping in from across the country, coast to coast to coast in the chat. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be here with us.
I'm just going to let you know that this session is in English. We will have a session in French after this. And we'll be posting the link to that in the chat. We'll try and post it a couple of times because I know that chat is moving very quickly. So we'll be posting the link to that, the French webinar, which will be happening right after this. We will also have sign language interpretation today. So you will see pinned on the screen here, Anna as well, who will be doing the sign language interpretation today. And there will be sign language interpretation for the webinar this afternoon in French as well. So my name is Jacqueline Reed, and I am the Director of Communications here at Community Foundations of Canada. I'm joining from the traditional territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations in my home in Vancouver. And we have organized this coast to coast to coast webinar for you all today. And before we jump into the agenda, I just wanted to cover a couple of Zoom housekeeping notes. I know we are very familiar with all the Zoom sort of housekeeping, but just to remind you, this is a webinar format. So unfortunately, we cannot see your 10,000 faces, but we know you're all there and you will be able to see and hear us. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. If you want to put your questions into the chat, as you can tell already, I know that there is a lot of folks joining this call, and we'll be taking the questions from the chat, and we'll be trying to answer the ones that will apply to the most number of people, because we know that we won't be able to get to every question today. This session will be recorded. I've seen some questions about that in the chat already. It will 100% be recorded. It will be on the Recovery Fund website, and you'll be able to access it there. So this session will be recorded. And if you have a question in American Sign Language, please feel free to send a message to the hosts and panelists, and we'll make sure that you can ask your question in American Sign Language. I'm now going to hand things over to André Pauline from the Canadian Red Cross to go over today's agenda. Over to you, André.
Thank you, Jacqueline. So in addition to who you've seen so far today, you'll also hear from our colleagues Betsy Challey from United Way's Centraide Canada and Sarah Trudeau from Community Foundations of Canada. Today, we will be going over the Community Services Recovery Fund. First, we will have a general program overview focused on what the fund is and what the project focus areas are. We'll then go over the funding streams available in this program. Next, we'll go over eligibility, which will include organization eligibility, ineligible activities, and expense eligibility. We will also highlight how applications will be evaluated, followed by a walkthrough of how to apply. We will then go over some of your questions in the chat during our Q&A. I'm eager to jump into all of this content today, and with that, let's kick off with the program overview. What is the Community Services Recovery Fund? So the Community Services Recovery Fund is a $400 million investment from the Government of Canada to support charities and nonprofits and Indigenous governing bodies as they focus on how to adapt their organizations for COVID-19 pandemic recovery. Now more than ever, charities, nonprofits, and Indigenous governing bodies are playing a key role in addressing persistent and complex social challenges and problems faced by many communities. Funding from the Community Services Recovery Fund is not for ongoing operations or programs that organizations may be running. Funding is to be used for internal adaptation and modernization needs of organizations. The fund will accept applications from community service organizations, which means nonprofit organizations, Indigenous governing bodies, or registered charities located in Canada who provide services to communities in Canada. We'll define these eligible organizations in a few minutes. As you continue to serve your communities, this unique funding opportunity aims to support community service organizations to adapt, modernize, and become more resilient. The Community Services Recovery Fund is being delivered through 3 national funders: the Canadian Red Cross, Community Foundations of Canada, and United Way Centraide Canada. The 3 national funders have worked and continue to work collaboratively on the Community Services Recovery Fund and welcome this opportunity to serve the not-for-profit sector together. From the program's design to delivery to evaluation, the national funders are working closely with one another on all aspects of the program. This means that there are different application pages depending on where you are applying, but there is one applicant guide, one set of evaluation criteria, and one central website with key resources you need as you determine which national funder you are applying to. Depending on your project focus area, you will be applying to a different national funder. But regardless of where you apply, the questions across all applications are consistent. With that, let's dive into the 3 project focus areas. Projects funded under the Community Services Recovery Fund will fall within one of 3 project focus areas. Although some projects may touch on more than one project focus area, eligible organizations will be asked to select one focus area that best relates to the main intention of their project. Please carefully consider the information in the applicant guide to ensure applications are submitted correctly. If applications are submitted to the incorrect project focus area, there is no guarantee that they will be redirected. Organizations can submit only one application to one national funder for this fund. The deadline for applications is February 21st at 5 p.m. PST. Results will be made available in the spring. Now the project focus areas. The first focus area is investing in people. Funding will support one-time projects that focus on how organizations recruit, retain, engage, and support their personnel, including staff, volunteers, and boards of directors. If your organization is keen to pursue a project focused on people, you're going to apply to the People project focus area. Some examples could include human and volunteer resource structures and policies, recruitment and retention strategies for staff, volunteers, and/or board members, mental health supports for staff, volunteers, and/or board members, supports and training for staff, volunteers, and/or board members, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, and any other eligible activities that help your staff, volunteers, or boards modernize or adapt. The second project focus area is investing in systems and processes. Funding will support one-time projects that invest in the systems and processes involved in creating the internal workings of an organization's overall structure. If your organization is keen to pursue a project focused on systems and processes, you are going to apply to the Systems and Processes project focus area. Some examples could include investment in contact management systems, implementation of a new communications plan, enhancement of a new accounting system, development, implementation, or adaptation of a new fundraising strategy, governance review through the lens of organizational resilience, exploring a merger or amalgamation amongst one or more community service organizations, development or adaptation of data privacy strategy or plan, or other eligible activities to help your organization's systems and processes modernize or adapt. The third project focus area is investing in program and service innovation and redesign. Funding will support one-time projects primarily focused on program and service innovation and redesign using information gained during the COVID-19 pandemic. If your organization is keen to pursue a project focused on program and service innovation and redesign, you're going to apply to the Program and Service Innovation and Redesign project focus area. Some examples could include exploring the adaptation of a program, service, or service delivery system using information gained during the COVID-19 pandemic, testing or piloting a program, service, or service delivery system that was redesigned or adapted during the COVID-19 pandemic, purchasing equipment or other program materials to facilitate the adaptation of a program and/or service using information gained during the COVID-19 pandemic, evaluating or analyzing the adaptation or redesign of a program, service, or service delivery system that was implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic, or other eligible activities to help your organization modernize or adapt its programs and services. Now that I've walked you through the overall program, I'll pass things over to Betsy Chali from United Way Centraide Canada to speak to the funding streams.
Thank you for the overview, Andre. The Community Services Recovery Fund has two funding streams, the local stream and the national, provincial, territorial stream. Each stream has two tiers of available funding. So I'll walk you through the local stream first. Local or regional community service organizations serving a portion of a province or territory must apply to the local stream. There are two tiers of funding available in this stream. Tier 1 project funding is from $10,000 to $100,000. Most projects will fall under the Tier 1. Tier 2 provides higher funding amounts for larger scale projects that meet very specific criteria. Available Tier 2 project funding is from $100,001 to $200,000. To be eligible to apply for Tier 2, applicants must meet the following specific criteria. The project is in the implementation or stabilization phase. In other words, the work has progressed past planning and is already underway. And the project is being carried out by two or more community service organizations, partnering or collaborating, where all the community service organizations involved will benefit directly from the results. I'd like to reiterate that most projects will fall under Tier 1, and to apply for Tier 2, you must meet the specific criteria. Now, moving on to the national, provincial, territorial stream. Community service organizations serving the entire country, an entire province or territory, or multiple provinces or territories must apply to the national, provincial, territorial stream. There are two tiers of funding available in this stream as well. Tier 1 funding is from $20,000 to $200,000. Most projects will fall under Tier 1. Tier 2 provides higher funding amounts for larger scale projects that meet specific criteria. Available Tier 2 project funding is $200,001 to $500,000. To be eligible to apply for Tier 2, applicants must meet the following criteria. The project is in the implementation or stabilization phase. In other words, the work has progressed past planning and is already underway. And the project is being carried out by either a national, provincial, or territorial community service organization with regional and local service branches or divisions, where the service branches will benefit directly from the results, or a community service organization structured as a national community service federation or representative association, where the member organizations will benefit directly from the results. Like I mentioned, for the local stream, most projects will fall under Tier 1, and to apply for Tier 2, you must meet the specific criteria. Before we move forward to eligibility, I want to highlight two important notes. First, provincial territorial organizations in Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland and Labrador, Yukon, Northwest Territories, and Nunavut can choose to apply through the national, provincial, territorial stream or the local stream. Second, local or regional branches of a national, provincial, or territorial organization, or provincial or territorial branches of a national organization may apply for funding even if their head office is also applying, as long as the projects are not a duplication and each organization applying is structured and registered as a separate entity. All of the information we are sharing today is available in the applicant guide for your reference throughout the application process. We have added the applicant guide in the chat, and I think it will be repeated again a little bit later, and it is also available on our website. Now let's go through the fund's eligibility. I'll first walk through organizational eligibility. The Community Services Recovery Fund will accept applications from community service organizations, which means nonprofit organizations, Indigenous governing bodies, or registered charities located in Canada that provide services to communities within Canada. So nonprofit organizations include unincorporated and incorporated associations, clubs, or societies that are not registered charities or individuals, but are organized and operate exclusively for social welfare, civic improvement, pleasure, recreation, or any other purpose except profit. Indigenous governing bodies includes Indigenous governing bodies that are not registered, such as qualified donees or nonprofits, such as First Nations bands, Métis settlements, and Inuit governments or associations. Registered charities and other qualified donees include charities and other qualified donees registered with the Canada Revenue Agency that are not listed below as an ineligible organization. If you're unsure of your organization type, please contact us using the contact information that is being added to the chat. In addition to being a community service organization, your organization must meet the following eligibility criteria. So to be considered eligible for funding organizations, organizations must meet all of the following criteria. They must be a community service organization, as was defined previously, be incorporated or established in Canada, or have a principal registered office address in Canada, provide services to communities in Canada, be in good standing with the Canada Revenue Agency, a provincial registry, or applicable regulatory body, have a governance structure in place with at least 3 people on the board, management committee or other type of governing body, have internal accountability measures such as practices and procedures for internal controls and accountability, have a bank account in the name of the organization and a financial management system to track the organization's income and expense transactions effectively. And lastly, be working in one or more of the community services areas listed on the slide from the International Classification of Nonprofits. To see the full list, please refer to the applicant guide available on our website. And I'll now walk through ineligible organizations. On this slide, you'll see the list of ineligible organizations, and some of them include for-profit organizations, business nonprofit institutions, including business associations, chambers of commerce, and condominium associations, provincial or territorial entities, including hospitals, medical centers, schools, private schools, universities, colleges, health authorities, public health authorities, educational institutions, health and social services institutions. To see the full list, please see the applicant guide on the website. And again, it's linked in the chat. Moving on to ineligible activities. Some ineligible activities include, but are not limited to what you can see on the slide. A few examples include direct service delivery, major capital projects, purchase of land and buildings, partisan, political, or election-related activities, publication of books or research, and projects and activities that generate a profit. Again, you have access to these full lists within the applicant guide, and refer to the chat for the link to that. Now I'll walk you through the eligible and ineligible expenses. Eligible expenses include reasonable expenses directly related to the project that further the project's purpose and activities, and that have been actually and properly incurred. These include personnel, wages and employment-related costs, contractors, fees for professional services, for example, materials and supplies, project equipment, travel expenses, training and events, and administration. Ineligible expenses include, but may not be limited to, expenses incurred prior to May 1st, 2023, and expenses incurred after June 30th, 2024, expenses covered by another funding source, including other pandemic recovery funds and restricted organizational revenue, gift cards, gifts, prizes, and/or incentives for participation, costs or expenses for entertainment, purchasing land and/or buildings, real estate fees and related costs. And once again, to access this full list, we encourage you to continue referring to the applicant guide, which is linked in the chat. I'll now pass it over to Sarah Trudeau from Community Foundations of Canada to go over how applications will be evaluated.
Thank you, Betsy. I'll now go through the 4 key criteria that will be used to assess your applications. All applications from eligible organizations will be reviewed, and all applicants will receive notification of the outcome of their application. Applications will be assessed according to the following criteria. Number 1, the COVID-19 pandemic has influenced, affected, or shaped the operations of your community service organization. 2, your proposed project is viable, meaning it can be implemented in the available time and with the available funding, and the organization has the capacity to provide oversight of the project. 3, your proposed project will help the community service organization adapt, modernize, or build resilience following the COVID-19 pandemic. 4th, your community service organization uses an equity lens in its work. Additional consideration will be made to distribute the available funding equitably. For example, across types of organizations, population served, subsectors, project focus areas, and geographic areas. Evaluation processes across streams will be fair and transparent. If you would like to dive deeper into what some key terms mean, we strongly encourage you to refer to the applicant guide. In the guide, you will find definitions for concepts including nothing about us without us, using an equity lens, equity deserving communities, and many more. Now we'll shift over to how you can apply. The first thing we encourage interested applicants to do is read through the applicant guide and get to know the program. You can find this in the resources section of our website. If you have determined that this program is right for your organization, you can move on to the second important step. Step 2 will be completing where to apply questionnaire or reviewing the decision tree. The questionnaire and decision tree will help guide you to the application page based on your organization type, location, and the project focus area of interest. We highly recommend you complete this questionnaire or consult the decision tree prior to beginning your application. Once you have completed the questionnaire, you will be directed to an application page where you will complete and submit your application. Organizations may submit one application for funding under this program. If an organization applies on behalf of a collaborative, that counts as one application. Please carefully consider the information in the applicant guide to ensure applications are submitted correctly. If applications are submitted incorrectly, there is no guarantee they will be redirected. All applications must be submitted by February 21st, 2023 at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. A reminder that as you consider where to apply, you can consult the applicant guide, where to apply questionnaire, and the decision tree. All right, let's move on to timelines. As I mentioned, you will have until February 21st, 2023, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to prepare and submit your application. You can expect to hear back about your application results between March and April of 2023. Successful applicants will have from May 1st, 2023 to June 30th, 2024 to complete their projects. The timeline is available in the applicant guide and the FAQs for your reference. Next steps. The key next step is to read the applicant guide to determine if this fund is right for your organization, followed by completing the Where to Apply questionnaire. Both of these resources can be found on our website's resources page. As a reminder, this fund is not intended to support external service delivery projects. The fund is meant to support you as a community service organization to adapt, modernize, and become more resilient. If you have any questions during your application process, please reach out to the Canadian Red Cross, your local community foundation, or your local United Way Centraide. Contact information has been added to the chat. I'll now hand things over to my colleague, Geneviève, from Community Foundations of Canada, to walk us through the question and answer.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, André. Hello again, everyone. Apologies for dropping off there at the beginning, and thank you to Jacqueline for jumping in and just carrying on. I see we've got a very active chat. Thanks to all of the participants for staying with us. The team is working hard to keep up with all of the chats. So just noting again that we'll take the time we can to address the questions we see coming up most frequently. And if we don't get to your question this afternoon, please do follow up as we've directed here in today's webinar. So without further ado, let's hop right in. Maybe one question I can just address off the top, which has come up a fair bit. A reminder that yes, absolutely, today's recording as well as the slides will be available to you on the website, the Community Services Recovery Fund.ca, shortly after today's presentation. So it might take a bit of time to upload everything, but you will find it there, and absolutely feel free to refer back to it at any point in the application process. While I give my colleagues another moment just to gather some questions, another one I've seen pop up a lot in the chat is regarding the deadline for applications. So again, a reminder, that's February 21st, 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So there we go. André, I'm going to share a question for you. Seen this one come up in the chat a fair bit. So I'm wondering if you could expand on how funds could be used to invest in people, if you'd mind covering perhaps a few more examples or going back to some examples that you shared earlier in the presentation again.
Sure. So I would say, different examples are around human and volunteer resources. So whether it's structures, whether it's policies, you can also work on recruitment, retention strategies, mental health supports, training for staff. And I would also emphasize that, because it is the people focus area, that it can be, for staff, volunteers, and or board members. So people that work within your community service organization. And also we mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives as well. So these are just a couple examples. And I would also refer you to the applicant guide as well as the frequently asked questions on the Community Services Recovery Fund.ca website. And if you do have any other questions specifically about the people project focus area, you can reach out to the Red Cross. We have an email and a phone number and we can help you in English and in French. And I believe we'll be sharing that contact information with this whole group as well.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Betsy, over to you with a question with regards to applying to both the local and national level. So I'll read the question out here from the chat. Can an organization apply locally at a branch level as well as at the national level?
No, it's one application per organization to any stream. So local or regional branches of a national, provincial, or territorial organization, or provincial or territorial branches of a national organization can apply for funding, even if their head office is also applying, as long as the projects are not the same and each organization applying is structured and registered as a separate entity.
Okay, great. If you don't mind, I will keep you on the hot seat for another question.
Sure.
Can an organization apply to the fund only once, or is it once for each stream? So I think this is an important one.
Yes, it's one application per organization.
Super, thanks. Last one for you here, Betsy, before
Sure.
we hand it off. Could you give an example of direct service delivery or direct fundraising activities or events? If you can go over a couple of examples, perhaps from the investing in program and service innovation component.
Sure. So some examples from program and services innovation and redesign include exploring the adaptation of a program, service, or service delivery system using info that was gained during the pandemic, testing or piloting a program, service, or service delivery system that was redesigned to or adapted during the pandemic. Those are a couple of examples. There are more examples. When you go through the questionnaire, you'll see a number of them listed if you choose this particular project focus area.
Wonderful, thanks. I think we can also refer folks back to the FAQs as well as our handy application guide, which has more as well. Sarah, maybe one for you. If you wouldn't mind speaking to the definition of what we're using for community service organization.
Thanks, Jen. So community service organization, as defined, is our nonprofit organizations, Indigenous governing bodies, or registered charities located in Canada that provide services to communities within Canada. I really encourage you to refer to the applicant guide for further references to this, as well as going into the FAQ section on the website. There is further definitions on Indigenous governing bodies there, as well as other qualified donees. If you have any questions, I encourage you to specifically reach out to one of the national funders and we can clarify if you are questioning whether you're an eligible organization.
Fantastic, thanks, Sarah. Hang tight there. I'm going to keep you in the hot seat for one more. Wondering if you could help folks with the sort of definition of local. So we've got a couple of questions here showing up in the chat around what's considered local, what's regional, national, provincial. So if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Sure. So a CSO, or community service organization, serving the entire country, an entire province or territory, or multiple provinces or territories, must apply to the national, provincial, territorial stream, meaning they're not local. If you serve part of a province, that would be local. So a community, a city, a part of a province, that would be considered a local, so you would apply to the local stream.
Fantastic, thanks for the clarification. Last one for you here before we switch gears. Wondering if you could, again, just speak to the timelines. You covered this a little bit in towards the end of the presentation, but just for folks who are wondering whether projects can be multi-year, can you give more specifics there on when the work needs to be carried out in community?
Yeah, great question. So all projects must start or either start by May 1st, 2023, and must be complete by June 30th of 2024. So just over a year period there. So any costs or any project activities prior to May 1st are not eligible, and any costs or activities post June 30th, 2024 are not eligible.
Super, thanks for the clarification. André, I'm going to switch back over to you here with a question again on how to help organizations sort of focus in on their primary area. So we have a few questions popping up around organizations, looking at applying for a mix of elements here, and just wondering if you could speak to and help guide folks on the webinar as to when they've got perhaps projects that touch on people as well as systems and processes, and a little bit of the innovation and kind of redesign components. So how would you help guide organizations who are wrestling with that question?
Sure. So first of all, I would say and acknowledge that there is some overlap between the 3 project focus areas. That's definitely true. Because of that, we're really asking organizations to identify the primary focus area of their project. And if they are having questions about that or are unsure of where they should be applying based on that, I would really encourage them to visit communitysservicesrecoveryfund.ca. Because there are multiple resources there. So there's the where to apply questionnaire, and there's also an infographic, essentially a decision tree that'll help you figure out, where you should be applying based on that primary focus area for your project.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. A couple of more kind of logistical questions and practical questions, which I can speak to here. So everything that you see today on the slides, in the deck, that you've heard from our speakers is available in the applicant guide, is available in the FAQs. So really encourage you to spend some time with those if you haven't already. And yes, I am confirming in response to a question here that these are funds provided by the federal government to support the Community Services Recovery Fund. Thank you. Finally, one last important question here. We do have online applications. However, we want to ensure accessibility. So there is absolutely a PDF available to those who need it, and that can be found also on the website, or feel free to reach out to any of the national funders. Okay, Betsy, I'm going to come back to you just to confirm the streams and how they're being managed by the different national funders. So again, if you could give that breakdown for folks on the call. There are a couple of questions around which funder is supporting which focus area. So if you could speak to that, that'd be great.
Sure. So the stream focused on people is being managed by the Canadian Red Cross. Systems and processes is being managed by Community Foundations of Canada. And the program and service innovation and redesign focus area is being managed by United Way Centraide Canada. So there's, as mentioned previously, there's a where to apply questionnaire available on the website, and we encourage you to take the questionnaire to find out which one you should apply to based on your particular project.
Super, thanks, Betsy. Question around municipalities here and whether they are eligible to apply. Sarah, I'm wondering if you could speak to that question.
Sure, thanks, Jen. Municipalities and entities controlled by a municipality, including municipal governments, regional governments, and regional districts, are ineligible to apply. So ineligible.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Really good question here. We've talked a little bit in today's session around the equity lens within the program. So wondering, Sarah, if you could stay on the hot seat there for a minute and talk a little bit about, give maybe a few examples about how the equity lens is being used within the CSRF.
Sure. So using an equity lens means recognizing diversity in experience and needs and creating frameworks that respond to diversity. An equity lens requires a set of informed policies and practices intentionally designed to promote opportunity and rectify disparities, as well as inform people positions to implement them effectively. And just a few areas of where we've included equity within the Community Services Recovery Fund is not only in the application form where an applicant can identify where equity is embedded within their organization, as well as within their project. Equity has also been woven in our assessment of the project. So assessing how the project or the organization has embedded equity.
Wonderful, thanks for that, Sarah. Audrey, back to you. So a question here that's come up a couple of times with regards to organizations interested and keen to explore developing a strategic plan and which focus area that would fall under. So wondering if you could give a little bit of direction to folks that have had that question.
Sure. So I would say, you know, not knowing all of the details around what that looks like, it's sort of hard to direct exactly in which project focus area it would be. It would likely be under the systems and processes focus area. But I would again encourage you to visit the examples in the applicant guide, as well as to take the where to apply questionnaire to really get a bit more of a firm answer on where you should be applying.
Super, thank you. If you don't mind staying on the hot seat there for another question, and just speaking to when sort of the eligible costs aspect of things here. So the specific question that's coming up here is, does the cost have to already be incurred? So when, what's the period for eligible expenses?
Sure. So the period for eligible expenses is between May 1st, 2023 and June 30th, 2024.
Okay, great. One more for you, Audrey, if that's all right. What if you are a nonprofit plus a registered charity? So a question there for an organization kind of sitting between sectors.
So registered charities and nonprofit organizations are eligible to apply. And one flag I would give as well is that all unincorporated not-for-profits apply to the Red Cross. So again, that's something that you'll find in the applicant guide. You'll find it in the infographic decision tree, and you'll also find that in the where to apply questionnaire.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much. I think that's a very important clarification for folks on the call and take note of. Sarah, one for you specific to the Community Foundation Network. So question here is, can we contact the local foundations taking part in the CSRF?
Good question. So more generally, if you go to the Contact Us page on the CSRF website, you'll find information to contact the Central Red Cross offices, as well as the United Way and local community foundation offices. If you go to the Community Foundation's CSRF webpage, you'll find an interactive map where you can scroll to find where your local community foundation is, and there you'll be directed on the contact of your local community foundation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Again, a reminder for folks maybe just joining in or who missed the earlier part, the Community Services Recovery Fund website, so communityservicesrecoveryfund.ca is your go-to for all the information covered in today's webinars, including the applicant guide, including the decision tree, guidance and information that will help direct you in submitting and reaching out to the right national funder, who, if then is working with folks locally, can guide you and get you the information you need if you're not finding what you need on the website. So just a reminder for folks, I know it's showing up in the chat, but for maybe people who've joined in a little bit later on the call. Another question here, Sarah, I can keep you in the speaker hot seat regarding eligible expenses. Question specific to wages for existing staff. Is that considered an eligible expense in CSRF?
Good question. Yes, it is an eligible expense as long as those wages are directly related to the project that you're applying for, and that the project you're applying for is an eligible project.
Okay, super. Another question here around the PDF for the application form. Sarah, going to keep you there. You've got your mic open. So where do folks access the PDF for that application form if they're not applying online through a portal?
Great. So we encourage you to take the where to apply questionnaire first. And then once you know which national funder you're applying to, you'll be directed to their specific portal and website where you can access the PDF version of their application. Okay,
thank you. We're just logging all the questions as they're coming in real time here. Thank you for bearing with us. There are a lot of questions. Let's switch gears. Betsy, I'm going to throw this one over to you with respect to the national funding stream. The question is, for the national funding stream, do all three of the funding partners make a joint decision on applicants? So I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to the evaluation process there for the national stream. I'm not sure if Betsy, you're having a perhaps a mic or muting tech difficulty. I think we've got a lot of folks on the call, and Zoom may or may not be supporting the volume. Sarah or Andre, perhaps you could jump in if you're able to unmute.
I can pop in. Yes, so all three funding partners will be part of the review process of the national stream. We do have outside review committee members who review the applications. So it's not fully reviewed and decisions made by the national funders. We do have an outside committee membership that will be reviewing the applications for the national projects. But all three national funders will have a seat at the table.
Okay, super. Thanks, Sarah, for that. There's a question here with regards to the process from someone in the chat. Would there be time and opportunity for an organization to submit a draft proposal for review? So Sarah, if you don't mind continuing on.
Sure, no problem. There isn't an opportunity to review draft applications. So again, just reiterating, referring to the applicant guide, and then doing either the questionnaire or the decision tree will help determine where your project falls under. If you need more specific information, again, reaching out to either one of the three national funders or the local United Way or Community Foundation offices to further discuss your project before submitting an application.
Okay, super. Andre, going to invite you to unmute, see if that works.
Yep, can you hear me?
Fantastic, great. So here's a question for you with regards to getting that application into the correct stream and what happens if you don't. So I'll read it out. If a group or organization applies to the incorrect stream, will the application be deemed ineligible or just moved to the correct stream? So wondering if you could just speak to what provisions exist and how we're processing that.
Sure. So technically, there is no guarantee that an application that is with the wrong funder will be moved over to the correct funder. And that's why we really are stressing for organizations to take the time before beginning your application to visit communityservicesrecoveryfund.ca and take the Where to Apply questionnaire and look over the decision tree. And then if you still have questions, you can contact the national funder that you think you should be applying to, and we'll be able to help you out. So because we can't guarantee any application rerouting, we really recommend taking the time on the front end before applying to make sure that you're applying to the right funder.
Thanks for that, Andre. I think that's a vital, crucial message for folks on this call to hear today. Take the time, spend it at the front end of the process. Connect with us if you have questions, just so you have that clarity and make sure that you get that application into the right place. Okay, Betsy, let's try again. Let's see if that unmute function works. I went through the same thing earlier, so I feel you.
Yeah, sorry, that was user error this time.
So here's one for you, kind of linked to the context, post-pandemic recovery. So question here, aside from the focus area on innovation run by the CRC, what are the links and does CSRF have a link to COVID? So wondering if you could speak a little bit to that.
Sure. The program as a whole has a link to the COVID-19 pandemic. As we highlighted in the application evaluation, as we highlighted earlier, rather, the application evaluation will be assessed based on 4 key criteria. And one of these criteria is that the COVID-19 pandemic has influenced, affected, or shaped the operations of your community service organization. So the application evaluation criteria, as mentioned, is available in the applicant guide. So take a look there and you can see a little bit more about this.
Wonderful, thanks. Can I keep you on the hot seat for 1 or 2 more questions?
Yeah.
Great. So here's a question regarding process. So somebody asking about the evaluation and the timelines. Are applications processed on a first come, first served basis?
No, they are not. Applications will be reviewed together. So the deadline, I'll repeat, is February 21st, 2023, and all applications will be reviewed together, not on a first come, first served basis.
Okay, great. Are you good for one more question here?
Sure.
If you need to, I'm reading straight from the chat here. If you need to expand and hire an executive director to run programs, is this a valid expense? We've seen this come up in a few different iterations, so wanted to bring that one to the fore.
Sure, and I think it was Sarah who mentioned earlier that wages and employment costs are eligible expenses. So, so long as your organization and project are also eligible. So yes.
Fantastic. Great, thank you. Give us a second here just to find some more questions. It would be great. So I'm reading one out here for you, Sarah. I'm going to love this one over to you. It would be great to be able to review the examples for each project focus. Will that information be available anywhere? Can you remind folks where to find that?
Yes. All of those examples that we provided today are available in the applicant guide, the FAQs, and in the recording of this webinar.
Okay, great. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to hang out there for another question. We've seen this one come up a few times. Thanks to the team for bringing these up to the fore, the ones that are recurring. Is the CSRF, is this fund 100% coverage, or is there a percentage the organization will need to contribute?
No, organizations are not required to contribute a portion of the funding.
Okay, thank you for answering that one. Question here for André. How do we prove? So what documentation would we need to show that we are an unincorporated association, i.e. a grassroots group? If you could speak to that one.
Sure. So if you take the where to apply questionnaire or take a look at the decision tree, you'll see a path for unincorporated nonprofits. And again, if you have any questions about that, you can feel free to reach out to the Red Cross, and we'll be sharing that contact information. Again, we've got an email address and a phone number in English and French to help support you.
Okay, wonderful. I'm going to keep you there for one more question. This one's come up a few times. We've addressed it in different formulations before, but I think it bears repeating. So if you wouldn't mind just going over one more time, the eligibility and specifically responding to why direct service delivery is not an eligible component for funding through this.
Sure. So in terms of why direct service delivery is not, I guess, an eligible component, this fund really is to help bolster community service organizations internally. And, you know, through the different project focus areas, you'll see that this funding really is to support CSOs internally with various different projects. And that's really what makes this fund pretty special, is it's an opportunity for the organizations themselves to really build capacity, build resilience, adapt and modernize. So that's just really the focus of this fund.
Fantastic. Thanks, André. One more for you here while we've got you on the hot seat. So are unincorporated nonprofit organizations only eligible for the people focus area?
That's a very good question. So unincorporated nonprofits, when they go through the decision tree or the questionnaire or they contact us, what they'll find out is they can focus on any project focus area. It's just that the Red Cross is going to be the funder for unincorporated nonprofits. So in the journey through the decision tree or through the questionnaire, you can choose any project focus area. It's just when it comes time to technically filling out that application and submitting it, it will be through the Red Cross's application portal.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Audrey. Sarah, back over to you. Again, a few specific questions here in the chat. If we have received funding from CFC in the last 2 years, can we still apply?
Yes, you absolutely can.
Okay, I'm going to keep you there for another 1 or 2 short questions. If someone's applying online, can the application be saved and can they come back to it later?
Great question. Yes, you can. So you can start your application as long as you hit the save button. You can return back to it and just make noting of your login and password. And you can log back in, and then your application will just stay in draft until you hit that submit button. So just a little reminder that be sure that if your application is in draft, you ensure that you've hit submit before or by February 21st, 2023.
Fantastic. Okay. Last one here before we wrap up. We're reaching the top of the hour. So Sarah, I'm going to end with you. If you don't mind speaking to the types of supporting documentation that applicants will be asked to provide.
So again, just referring to that applicant guide, it really stipulates all of the different documents and verifications you need when applying. And then you will be asked to submit, depending on what type of organization you are, some financial organizational information, as well as submitting some of your internal board information, as well as people and processes information.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Thank you to you, Sarah. Thank you to you, André, and to you, Betsy, for taking and answering all of these questions, for walking all of us through the material today and taking the time to be here. Thank you to all of you for signing in to this event. If we didn't reach your question today, please visit our Community Services Recovery Fund.ca website. Follow through for the contact information for the different national funders. We're here to support you throughout the application process right up until February 21st. So don't hesitate to reach out. Big thanks for joining us today, and
a big thanks for joining us today. I think Jen's just had another issue, but I wanted to invite you to take our feedback poll. We really appreciate your feedback as we try and make sure you have the support you need in completing your applications. So we hope this session was helpful, but would love your feedback. We just have a 1-minute survey that should be on the screen for you there. And for any of those folks, I saw some questions in the chat there, just asking about whether or not this session was being recorded. All those questions, just to reiterate, everything will be on the website, the slides, the recording, and all of the information will be on the website. Everything we've covered today is going to be in that applicant guide and the FAQs. So do strongly encourage you to read those documents and go through the Where to Apply questionnaire. We know over 8,000 of you have already done the Where to Apply questionnaire, which is great. But yeah, if you keep doing that questionnaire to have that clarity on where to apply, and the contact details are also available on the website. So thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and have a great day.